Hi, guys. Hi, Pietro. Thank you for the memberships. I really appreciate it. Hi, Chris. Hi, Hooves. How are we? Well, so I wasn't live for a couple of days for a couple of reasons. Yesterday, I was giving ABC Australia at around this time an interview about what happened at the hospital because I was close by when it happened. And so I live right near Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital. And I was at home when the missiles struck the hospital. So to paint you the picture of how close I live to the hospital, imagine you live in a beach in an apartment near the beach, right? There is the first line of apartments, which is right at the beach. So imagine the beach is the hospital, right? There is the first line of apartments that is literally right in front of the hospital. And then there is the second line. So I am on the second line of apartments. I live legitimately like if if the hospital is the beach, then I'm on the second line to the beach. Um, I will walk you a little bit through what had happened. I know that you have seen a lot in the media, but I guess like I'm not a direct witness because I wasn't at the hospital, but I was about, a block away. And the blast was insane from that. Like I've seen a lot of destruction in Kyiv and in Ukraine in general from, missile strikes and Russia's very existence. But this was very different because this was the first time something hit so close to me. I mean, it was it's very unsettling. Unsettling is like, the least I can say to this situation, but I don't necessarily know how to talk about this. So I'll just start with, what happened. I didn't go live that day, other than for fundraising, which thank you so much, you guys. We will get to that and I'll tell you what we've done with the money that we have received. Thank you. And stuff like that. But I want to, where do I live now in Kyiv? I just, I'll walk you through basically how that looked to me. So I woke up really early that day. I woke up at like 8 a.m. for no reason. And I was sort of like, doing the dishes and stuff like that. I actually opened my dishwasher and when I came back home, um, and when I came back home, like my dishwasher was open, but basically here's what happened. I wake up at 8 a.m. I'm just kind of like cleaning up my apartment and all this stuff. I need to take Cindy for a walk. At about 9:30, an air raid goes on, or like 9 something, right? And I'm not even looking at my phone because it's 9 a.m. And usually if there is an air raid alarm at like 9 a.m., it's a MiG 31 changing locations in Russia. So the entire country goes under an air alert, not just Kyiv. It's just protocol, right? So I don't think much of it. I really didn't necessarily like, I don't know what time it was. It was somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. or 9 and 10 at 9 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. I don't remember what time the hospital was hit specifically, but it was somewhere in that time frame. And I'm like, all right, well, nothing to see here, right? So I'm kind of strapping Cindy into her little walkie gear, and then I hear something really loud outside of my window. And for a minute there, I was like, oh, okay. So that wasn't just a MiG. I was like, it's cruise missiles. Because, ballistics happens so rarely that, that's not. And I've heard air defense work before, but this was louder than air defense. I and then as I'm like continuing to strap Cindy in, another explosion goes off. So those were the two hits that happened on the subway station, which is literally also so close to me. And I didn't know that at the time, but I was like, okay, well, that doesn't sound well. So I'm just going to go downstairs. As I am going downstairs, so is the rest of my building. Like legitimately every single person that I know from this building was like in the hallways trying to get to the elevator. The elevators weren't running very well because there were so many people like trying to get down. Which, as I found out later, is because it was a ballistic air raid because Kinjals were flying in. So I get downstairs. Somehow no one's like sitting on the couch. There's like a little couch, and I didn't go to the basement. A lot of people went to the basement. I stayed on the ground floor because I, as an idiot, thought it was cruise missiles, which I was like, oh, they're gonna get taken down. which they weren't taken down because the air defense was too preoccupied with taking down ballistic missiles, which are Kinjal, so those weren't. But anyways, so I didn't think of going to the basement. I was like, I'm just going to be on the ground floor. So I sit on the couch, and as I sit on the couch, I don't know what possessed me, but I was like, I'm going to film my door, because what if because likely there are going to be more, maybe there are going to be more sounds of there are going to be more sounds of air defense working, so I can I can maybe put it in a video and show you guys what that sounds like when the air defense is working, because I've said that to you so many times, but I don't have like any, I don't have anything recorded. And literally about like less than 20 seconds after I set my phone to film, there is this massive blast. Like, I mean, it's so loud and it's so huge. Like, for your understanding, for TikTok and for the videos, for your understanding, and like for the videos for TikTok and for all the social media, I decreased volume to 35 or 15 or something like that, because if I don't do that, you can't hear the voiceover, and also because that would like legitimately spook most people. And that's why in the video I said in about a second you're going to hear a blast, because I wanted to like prepare people for what's about to happen, because also a lot of people get triggered by things like that. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, on my Instagram and TikTok and Twitter, I posted a video basically detailing what happened that day. Not detailing, but sort of like showing things around. I don't know. It's honestly like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to do my best to like explain what happened. It's not a very easy subject to talk about, and I also am like kind of losing track of of all the events of that day. But basically, so I said sit down on the couch. I start filming, and like 20 seconds after I start filming, there is this huge blast, and I have never heard anything like that. So I knew that there was that something like, okay, that's Lviv, not Kyiv, at least right now. So I knew that was impact. I knew it wasn't like a missile getting taken down, because like the ground shook. It wasn't like a sound in the air. The ground shook. The windows in my building shook. The windows in my building opened, and like there was this whole like, it was a blast wave. So I was like, okay, something landed somewhere very close. I mean, against my better judgment, I went outside. Against my better judgment, I went outside, because I was just like, I looked through OSINT, monitoring channels, and they were like all clear. Looks like all the missiles either hit their targets or were taken down. And I go outside, and I see smoke coming out of from like behind some buildings towards the direction of the subway station. And I was like, what the fuck? So I immediately realized that something got hit, right? So for your understanding, like I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing. I was just sort of like doing it. So I had my phone, I didn't have my ID, I didn't have my press card, I didn't have anything on me, literally nothing. I just had my phone, my keys, and my dog. And my dog, my phone, and my keys. And I had the phone where I don't have like any of my information, like Dia is not on it. It's my like American phone. So it's like I literally have nothing to identify me, to show to like the cops or anyone, or like first responders if they're there, to like walk through this whole situation. So I just see basically like the smoke, and I follow it. So I followed the smoke to the subway station, and at that point I only knew about that hit because I could physically see it. So I walked over. I see there's all of these like there's all of the debris. There is like windows that are on the floor. They're like on the ground. There is like tons of glass shards. It's just like the closer you get to there, the worse it gets. Someone told me that there were like multiple hits, so I realized that on the other side of the train station, it's worse. So I was told that people were stuck underground, so they were being extracted from there. And at that point, I basically only knew that missiles had hit twice, because you could see there was like multiple things happening, that missiles had hit twice or something like that. that subway station and the area around it, because it was very obvious. I mean, there were like, again, as I said, there were like shards of glass. I have so many video, but they're on this phone. If you didn't see, you know what, I'll show you the video, because if you didn't see it, it'll paint you a better picture of what that looked like. And this landed in my neighborhood today at 10 a.m. This is the hallway of my building, and in about a second you'll hear a blast. 3 Kinjals and 6 cruise missiles were sent by Russia to Kyiv this morning. They hit a subway station, a factory that you see here, and a children's hospital. I didn't have access to film the children's hospital, which is where most of the damage occurred, because one must have a military press pass, and mine is still in the works. To be fair, I'm not sure I want to see what happened on the other side, because you can see how badly damaged this side is. This is about 10 minutes walk by foot from my home. I've seen a fair share of damage in Kyiv, but this was the most distressing to see because of how close to home this is. Next time you want to ask yourself if there is really a war in Ukraine, remember that this type of thing can happen while you're walking your dog in the morning and your world turns upside down. And missile landed in my neighborhood. Also, you guys, mods, block immediately, because I have no patience for any of the stupid like Russian trolls today who are going to be saying stupid stuff like, we were hiding missiles at a hospital, or we were like whatever. I honestly, like, I am not gonna tolerate that. So block it immediately, because I'm literally gonna have a mental breakdown, and I don't want that. I don't like. There is not going to be any like funny Yulia yelling at trolls today, because like I saw a fucking dead body being pulled out from under the rubble, and I saw how like first responders were running to that body thinking it was a person that they are saving from under the rubble, and it turned out to be a body. But we're going to get to that later. So I got there. I saw that there was like a lot going on. First responders were there. There wasn't anything that I could really do. I was literally wearing slippers with like open toes, and there was like shards of glass everywhere. I had my dog on me, so I was just like, this is stupid. I filmed some videos because I called Masha from Kyiv Independent, and I was like, hey, are you at the scene? And she said no. I was like, do you need any videos? She's like, yeah, whatever you can film, send me. But at that point, I did not know that the hospital was hit, because I thought this was the main site of the impact, because this is what I saw, right? So she called me a minute later, and she was like, look, the reporters are on the way. The hospital was hit. And I was like, what hospital? And she said, Ohmatdyt. And so that's right near me as well. So I ran back home. I brought Cindy back home. And I didn't necessarily know what to do, so I imagined that I can't go there, because it's not like, it's not like I have any sort of credentials that would like let me get there and help. And also, how can I help? So I didn't necessarily know what to do at all. So I edited the video and I posted it. At that point, my friend Rima, who is a combat paramedic who also teaches soldiers combat medicine and tactical medicine, CLS courses, and this other course that I forgot what the name of it is, but she's fantastic. And she's so she's not a combat medic, she's a combat paramedic. So there are not that many combat paramedics in Ukraine. So she messaged me after seeing the video, and she's like, hey, I'm at the hospital. There is a second air raid. They evacuated all of us because they're scared of a double tap. At that point, like some of the OSINT channels were saying that there is a reconnaissance UAV in the air around like the center of Kyiv. The second that I saw that, I literally looked out of the window and I saw the UAV. So that was lovely. So basically everyone was scared of a double tap. Rima told me she was at a cafe, send me the location. The cafe was down the street. I was like, what can I do? How can I help? And she was like, look, a lot of people are bringing water to the hospital, but I don't see a lot of people bringing like bananas and energy bars and stuff like that. So I went live and I told you guys about it. And at that point, a couple of people donated. And then I think we like raised maybe like $25 or something like that. So I was like, okay, I'll take my own money. Rima was going to take her own money. She was with a bunch of other paramedics who were American, who were like, yeah, we're fine. Like, let's all basically do what we can and like put what we can and buy some food and like buy whatever might be necessary. I then went and posted about this on I think YouTube and Discord, and I did another live, at which point Shay Hi donated $250, and then a bunch of donations came in also while I was at the hospital and I didn't see, and then we basically ended up using them to help people who lost their apartments. I'm sorry, I'm losing track, but I'm gonna get there. So we sit at the cafe. We have some like water and some like cold drinks, whatever. We had some food because we realized that we can't run on adrenaline. And then we go to the supermarket and we buy like, I don't know, a lot of energy bars and a lot of granola bars, trail mixes, waffles, like anything that has sugar in it, because that's like good in it. There's also kids, and we find out that the dialysis wing was destroyed. It's the newest, most modern wing at that hospital. This hospital is the largest and most technologically advanced hospital in Ukraine, and it's also one of the largest and most technologically advanced hospitals in Europe. There were kids from all over the world in that hospital. They specialize in oncology. So these are kids with cancer that Russia targeted. I have no words. There is no fucking missiles in that hospital. Okay, it's a hospital for children. They're babies. Another ward that got very heavily hit was a ward for NICU for premature babies. Premature babies. Anyways, so we get all of that, like food, water, supplies, whatever. I'm like, everything is getting mixed in my head at this point, and we walk to the hospital, which is very close by. We get to this like drop-off point, and there are so many people, and I mean, like, they're turning people away because there are so many people wanting to help. I found out later that like almost every resident of my building who works from home went and like helped clear out the rubble. I've seen a lot of my friends who were there helping clear out the rubble. Basically, like, it was overflowing with help and with people and stuff like that. We saw that. We went and dropped off the stuff that we got, and actually not that many people brought energy bars, so that was good, because like, you know, like food, most people were bringing water and like syringes and like, you know, bandages and stuff like that, which is great. So we basically ask this coordinator woman who's standing at the gate and is like, hey, we don't need any more hands right now. Like, there are way too many people, you know, like there is overcrowding, like please just go somewhere else. And we were like, where can we go? And so she gets a text message from someone from her, like, you know, from her, I don't know, she gets a text message, and then the text message basically says that a residential building was hit. It's like a 20-minute cab ride, and most people are not there because they're all at the children's hospital. At that point, we also find out that another hospital was hit on the other side of Kyiv, on the left bank across the river. So it was a private clinic. So basically, we all regroup and we decide that we're going to go to this apartment building and we're going to help them with whatever they need. So Rima had just finished teaching a unit of Brazilian foreign fighters tactical medicine. So they reach out to her and they're like, hi, we are still in Kyiv. We are a bunch of men with like shovels and, you know, an ability to like dig for long periods of time. What can we do? So we tell them to go to that location, which is like the building. At that point, some man runs up, like trembling, like he was literally like he was losing his shit, and he runs up to this coordinator and he's like, hi, I just drove 100 kilometers to Kyiv. Where can I help? And she's like, well, what do you have? And he's like, my hands. And so she was like, I don't know where to send you. And I was like, what do you mean? Send him to the apartment building. And she was like, oh yes. So she gives him the address. This guy like frantically runs away. We ended up actually seeing him later at the site. He was wearing this like very, very like loud t-shirt, so it was hard not to recognize him. But so we saw him there, and so he made his way to the apartment building and was helping there. But anyway, so we go to my place. At that point, Cindy was with the security guard downstairs, so I bring her upstairs because the air raids are over, and I don't, like, you know, the security guard can't like stay with her for so many hours. So so me, Rima, and these other paramedics basically go to this location. We take two different cabs. At that point, the soldiers that she had trained arrived to the scene of the events, and we were only let in to help because we were in a military vehicle, because at that point they weren't letting too many people in because for security reasons, you know, like a lot of the times when something like this happens, if someone was a person who navigated this airstrike, they would be going there to make sure that it hit where it was supposed to. So basically they were like at that point very picky with who they were letting in. There were lots of neighbors and people from the neighborhood. If you weren't from the neighborhood, they weren't necessarily letting you come and help. They did let us because again, we were in a military vehicle with a bunch of like, you know, dudes with shovels who were soldiers and who obviously have military credentials. So we get there. There is so many paramedics. There are so many first responders. There's so many firefighters. Some of them are like sitting on the floor crying. This building, I'll show you the video of this because so this building had like 4 blocks in the building, like 4 different, I guess, like you can call them. They're not block. Well, they're kind of blocks. So this building wings. It has 4 wings. It's a small building, and it's a Khrushchevka. Khrushchevkas were buildings that were built in the Soviet Union by Khrushchev. So we have like, you know, Stalinki, Khrushchevki, like basically every single one of the totalitarian dictators built his own version of like shitty housing. So these are like small, you know, small buildings. They're usually 5 stories high and they have very small apartments. And there are lots of people packed on top of each other in each like apartment block. So for your understanding, in this one apartment block, 26 people lost their houses of those who had reported losing houses and of those who were alive. So another thing about these buildings is that they're made out of concrete. So when a missile destroys them, all of that concrete falls down. So it's not like, you know, there is no like cardboard, there are no cardboard walls. Like it's not your typical like Brooklyn apartment building that was built 2 years ago in about 3 months, you know, like this is like a heavy concrete building. So we get there, this building literally is destroyed. And I mean, you will, okay. Look at that. This entire flight is missing. It's a whole building in between 2 buildings, basically. My internet is bad, so you might not. Okay, here.
We could to help. Part of your donations bought this food. They gave hands more than they needed food. They found someone.
Call me Block. Yes. Yeah, Richard.
Were ready to extract them, only to find out it was a body. Today we learned it was a 40-year-old woman and her 2 children, 9 and 10. An entire wing of this building was destroyed, leaving 26 people without apartments. The ruins were so thick that this excavator car was tipping over, unable to lift them out. You can't imagine how loud I was on site. I decreased background volume to 4. This was a legitimate military target for Russia, huh? Just a bunch of people waking up to start their day.
So basically we get there. There is a lot of like debris. There is a lot of rubble. There is a lot of just like everything, right? And like I've seen firefighters sit there like sweat, like drenched in sweat because obviously they've been working for a while. And some of them were crying, like literally crying. There was police there. There was just like everyone. When we walked up, there was a man sitting on the ground with a cigarette and like a bottle of vodka. And there was, so we have these like, we have police therapists. So they come to impact sites or like to disaster areas and they talk to victims. And so this man was like drinking vodka, smoking a cigarette, and the person next to him was a police psychologist or like a police therapist. So I'm assuming that man lost someone in that building or lost his apartment or something like that. Later, I found out, do you remember Yulia and Max, who have the charity Return of Childhood, My Friends? So Yulia's close friend's mother lived in that block of that apartment building. And the only reason she survived is because she was actually trapped under the rubble of the subway station. Well, not under the rubble. It's like the people couldn't come out of the subway station because like the entrance was basically blocked by the rubble. So she was like, fine. She was just underground and she couldn't get out. So she was taking that subway line to her house. And she would have been at home had that not happened. So so she doesn't have a place to live anymore. We basically got there. We got gloves and shovels, and I mean, we got to work. Rima and I are two short people, short women. So every single man kept coming up to us, taking the shovel and being like, "Oh, it's okay. You don't have to do this. I'll do this," and like sort of teaching us how to use a shovel, which was really annoying. But I mean, like it was like with good intentions. But anyways, we lost like 10 shovels in an hour or less, and so at some point we were like, like we can't really do anything. So we were just like taking these bags, like these garbage bags that these men were shoveling the debris and the rubble into. So at some point, the paramedics thought that they had found. At some point, the paramedics thought that they had found someone under the rubble, and they ran towards that location, and then they abruptly stopped because they weren't needed, and uh, they weren't needed because a body bag was needed. We found out the next day it was a 40-year-old woman and her two children. Her daughter was 9 and her son was 10. So an entire family died in that building. The rubble was really thick because again, it's concrete, right? And the car that was lifting out the rubble wasn't equipped for the job. It was incredibly hard for this car to move these pieces, like these slabs of concrete. So you can even see in the video, like the wheels of the car at the front are coming up because it's tipping over, because it's just like the rubble is heavier than the car that's supposed to lift it. It was just a lot of mess. I mean, we spent a good amount of time there. We did everything that we could. We then asked basically if there is anything else that we could do to help, and we were told that there are people who were displaced, who lost their apartments, who are at a school nearby, and maybe they need some help. So we went over there and we're like, "Hey, we're happy to rent hotel rooms for these people if they need it." So they took our phone number, and they said they would call us if that would be the case, because so far they're just like sort of staying at the school on mattresses and stuff. And we were like, well, if they want better accommodation, we can like rent out a bunch of rooms in a hotel around the area. Never got the call, but we offered, like, to bring, if we could bring anything that was necessary. At that point, I think it was like 7:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something like that. They said it's okay. I left my number to every single, like, volunteer or person that came my way that was like helping and coordinating these efforts. And so then Rima kind of like, well, Rima is a very, very strong woman who sees a lot of crazy stuff. She broke down because she just had realized that, there was a dead body pulled out from under the rubble, and it's just like a civilian that was like sleeping or getting ready for work or something like that. And then their life just ended. And we both sort of had like, a moment, and then we got a cab and we went and got some food. And then I walked home because I just needed, a moment to walk home and not think about anything. I got home. I looked down at I actually still have my sneakers in the Ziploc bags that I put them into at Rima's apartment because they were so incredibly dirty. I can actually show you them. You know what? I'll show you them. I mean, they're just like dusty because there was dust everywhere, and it was so loud there too. You have no idea. So, okay. Oh, fantastic. These are the gloves that I used. This is a respirator that I was given. And these are my shoes. Normally they're purple. I don't know what color they are at the moment, but it looks more like gray. I don't think the camera is capturing the color of this, but they're literally gray. I just I got home. I had dust everywhere. I had dust in my hair. I had dust like in my, just like I would put my hand in my hair and there would just be like dust. I felt like I just had pieces of dust all over me, which I did. I wanted to take a shower, but I couldn't because there was no electricity. And so I stayed up until electricity came back on because I just simply couldn't fathom going to bed with all of this on me, because it was just first of all, sensory, the worst feeling on the planet, because my like sensory feelings kicked in, when I got home, and sort of like adrenaline washed off. So um, yeah, I just waited for electricity to come back on. I took a shower. And I was so exhausted I went to bed. And that was the day. That was the day of the mass attack of Russia on Ukraine. It was horrendous. I remember I told you guys I had an idea a while back that I wanted to do calendars of first responders in Ukraine, same way that you guys do firefighter calendars. So I found a photographer, a very fantastic photographer, who took a very famous photo in Ukraine in the beginning of the invasion, who's happy to do it for free. Rima knows quite a few first responders and paramedics and like people that deal with disasters. So we want to do a calendar, and we're going to try to make it happen. And basically all of the profits from that calendar are going to go and be donated to first responders. So that's kind of where I am at and what happened that day, and sort of where I've been and why I haven't been going live. To be honest, it's sort of like, when this all happened, I am a person who goes into problem solving mode. I don't go into panic mode. So when something like this happens, I immediately think of what I can do to make it better. I don't like cry. I don't go crazy. I don't like, like my emotions sort of turn off, and it's just like cold, like cold-headed, sort of like, what can I do? How can I be useful? So when I got home, I think like that's the time where I sort of like thought about everything that, that had happened, because this missile landed a block away from me. A block away from me. And like, and it's just like, I was grateful that I wasn't the people in those apartments. I was grateful that I wasn't the people, like that I wasn't at the hospital. I was grateful that I wasn't walking Cine on that block. I was grateful that, like, I don't know, we weren't outside. I thought like, in the past 2 years, I've been putting away so many things that I've been wanting to do. Like, I don't know, I've always wanted to go to Australia. Like, I fucking want to go to Australia. Like in the past 2 years, I've been wanting to take a TACMed course, and there have been a lot of legitimate reasons why I didn't, but also like, screw those reasons. I'm taking a TACMed course on the 19th, taught by Rima. And then hopefully I'll take a higher level TACMed course and a higher level TACMed course. I want to do those things. I've been putting away applying for a British visa because it's £200. So I'll fucking figure it out, and I'll apply for a British visa, because I haven't been to London in like 13 years, and I want to go. There are certain things that I've been wanting to do, with my life, and certain like things that I just like doing that I stopped doing, and I decided I am not going to keep putting them away. So I have this like list, calendar, planner thing, whatever, just huge, large piece of paper on my wall that you're supposed to fill up every month with like things that you're supposed to do and stuff. And it's been abandoned due to ADHD since it's been bought. And now it has all of these things on it, and I'm going to continue adding to them. And I'm also going to work. One of the things that I want to work on is forgetting to, like, check the things that I need to work on. So it's sort of like, basically, like, I'm just gonna start living my life. And I know I realized I've stopped living my life 2 years ago at all, because of the war in Ukraine. And also because of the war in Ukraine, I understood recently that I can do both. I want to help Ukraine, but at the same time, I also might not be here tomorrow, because you never fucking know. And so I want to be here and do as much as I can here, but I also want to do things that I continuously put away because I don't feel like I can't do them and I shouldn't do them. And it's like, I don't know. Anyways, thank you for listening to my rant. We're now going to get to the news. But yes, I'll be applying for a UK visa whenever I can, or as soon as I can. And I am going to I don't know, visit Australia as soon as I can. And I'm going to take a TACMED course on the 19th. And there are other things that I have scheduled that I've been wanting to do that I sort of like, and I'm not scheduling them like all tomorrow, I'm like spacing them out because I understand that it's probably also one of those things where I'm kind of like losing my mind, but I am going to try and do everything that I've been wanting to do and needing to do and things like that. And I'm going to try and, wake up early and not go to bed at a stupid time. And I'll try to like, I don't know, get my shit together because honestly, like tomorrow may never come. And it was a very close call. And I can't even imagine. I saw a video today of people reacting to the missile strike, and it was just like, footage from like a store. And one of the people there was a military guy, and he literally did not react to the missiles going off. He just didn't react at all because he just, that happens to him all the time. So, yeah. Anyways. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky and Prime Minister of Poland Donald Tusk signed a defense agreement between Ukraine and Poland on July 8th, the same day that a strike happened on the hospital. Ukraine initiated the convening of an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council due to the massive Russian missile attack on Ohmatdyt. So Russia chaired the UN Security Council and shut up a children's hospital and a private clinic. So that private clinic was Isida Hospital, and it's a maternity ward in that hospital that got hit by Russia, and 7 people were killed in it at the time of impact. So the things that went unnoticed that day because of the strike on the children's hospital is a massive strike on a residential building in Dnipro, a massive strike on like a warehouse facility or just like a building in Kryvyi Rih, a strike on a residential building in Kyiv, a strike on a second hospital in Kyiv, and the subway strike. President of the Czech Republic Petr Pavel condemned the attack on the children's hospital in Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, stating the attack on the most vulnerable cannot be justified. He emphasized that this act is proof that Putin's Russia will stop at nothing. The Security Service of Ukraine investigators have established that the Russian Federation hit the Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital in Kyiv with a Kh-101 missile. Parts of the missile, including the rare part with a serial number and part of the steering wheel, were found at the site. This was a video that was really inspirational to me because it was a veteran of the Special Operations Forces whose name is Artem Hrot, who was literally at the site of the apartment building, and he has a prosthetic leg, and he was helping clear the rubble. And this is the type of stuff that Ukrainians do that just lets me believe that that no matter how long it's going to take, we are going to prevail in this, and we are going to defend our nation, and we are not going to give up, and we're not going to let into Russia. Zelensky said he was unaware of Orban's plans to meet with Putin following his visit to Kyiv. The president also emphasized that there can be no mediation between Ukraine and the aggressor state except through the consolidated efforts of the world's powerful countries, which are capable of forcing Putin to end the war. And that's true. Ukraine ceasing to fight is not going to stop the suffering. It's not going to stop the war. It's just going to continue suffering in a different form. A pediatric nephrologist, a 30-year-old Svetlana Lukyanchuk, she's my age, I'm turning 30 in less than a month, was killed in the Russian attack on Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital. As a result of that attack, the Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital was rendered almost 80% inoperative. All communications were destroyed, leaving the facility without electricity and water, according to Alexander Lysitsa, head of the bone marrow transplantation department, who spoke to the Ukrainian BBC. There are 20 critically ill patients and more than 30 less critically ill patients in the department, all of whom are children. They are currently being relocated. The exact number of dead and injured remains unknown as the rubble of the destroyed building is still being sorted, and it was sorted up until this morning. So Finland, Germany, and Poland all decided to take in some of Ukraine's children. But here's the thing. Everyone sees this as like the picture of today. It's fantastic that these children are going to be now treated for free, I guess, in Germany, Poland, and Finland. But this is the largest hospital in Ukraine. It's also the most advanced hospital. In places like the United States, like the UK, like maybe like Germany, you will have a couple of cities in which you have these like phenomenal hospitals, right? So like if one in Munich isn't working, München, then you can take kids to the one in Berlin or something like that. This is the best hospital. Kids get there when they cannot be helped in smaller hospitals in other cities. So this is like the best oncological center. So if they help them there, then no other hospital in this country can help them. So that means that, okay, sure, the batch of children that was being treated there right now is going to get treated abroad. What's going to happen to other children that are going to get cancer? Because inevitably they will. What is going to happen to other children that have kidney problems and need dialysis? What is going to happen to those children? Because long term, this is the largest medical facility for children in Ukraine and the best one. And it's going to take a long time to renovate it and to bring it back to an operable condition. So it's a very, very critical hit for healthcare in Ukraine, specifically for children and specifically for oncologically, children in oncology. The number of people killed by the Russian attack in Kyiv is increased to 22 people, and another 72 were injured, and that was as of 5:46 p.m. on July 8th. That number had risen significantly since then. Here is a picture of doctors continuing to operate in a literally obliterated room because they were operating on a child. Gentle reminder, Russia is the head of the UN Security Council. Monobank, in collaboration with United 24, has initiated a fundraising campaign aiming to collect 100 million hryvnias for reconstruction of Ohmatdyt, Ukraine's largest children's hospital. That was raised in about 3 hours and more. I think we raised $8 million total in general. And that is without McDonald's, which, by the way, if you want to pay tribute to a fast food company, one that isn't operating in Russia and one that did something fantastic, McDonald's in Ukraine is donating all of the profits from the sale of cheeseburgers for the month of July for Ohmatdyt. So, and I understand that they're not going to be donating money from like the sale of cheeseburgers in Germany or France or the United States. But, if you wanted to support a fast food chain, support McDonald's, because at least they're making the right decisions. Instead of getting a Chick-fil-A sandwich, maybe think about getting a cheeseburger or something, because they're doing the right thing. Here are the consequences of a missile attack by the Russian army on an industrial enterprise in Kryvyi Rih. This is one of the things that no one was talking about because, of course, it got overshadowed, understandably, by the attack on the children's hospital. But this also happened in Kryvyi Rih. There was also... Are there portions of the hospital that are still operational, or is the whole thing out of commission? 80% of the hospital is deemed inoperable at all, but there is also no water or electricity. All of that infrastructure is ruined. So technically 100% of the hospital is inoperable because you can't do anything while there is no water or electricity, especially in an oncological hospital. Elena Svitolina reached Wimbledon quarterfinals. Elina Svitolina advanced to the quarterfinals of the Wimbledon tennis tournament by defeating Chinese player Wang. Svitolina wore a black ribbon during the match. Without a doubt, it was a good game, but it was a difficult day for the Ukrainians. So, yes, it was not so easy to concentrate on the game. It was very difficult to read the news in the morning. It was very difficult to go out onto the court, Svitolina commented, as she was shedding tears and trying to gather herself to make that speech to begin with. I'm very grateful that we have Ukrainian athletes that are finally getting the spotlight that they deserve, because we do have a lot of fantastic athletes throughout the history of this country, even throughout the history of the independence of this country. But a lot of people either think of them as Russian or don't know where they're from. Like, Klitschko brothers, everybody thought that they were German. They're Ukrainian. And I'm glad that they're getting the spotlight. But the thing is, it's really, really sad that a lot of people are more concerned about Elina Svitolina crying during her speech about the missile attacks than about the missile attacks themselves. Because without these celebrities, because let's face it, athletes are celebrities in a lot of ways. Without these celebrities, most people wouldn't even blink an eye. We have fantastic soccer players like Zinchenko, who consistently talks about Ukraine and cries before matches when something happens. And that's how, his fans react to Ukraine. But if it wasn't for him and his fans, those fans would never open those news. French ambassador visited Ohmatdyt. He said that Russia will have to answer for the missile strike. And I hope that he really means it. And Russia will have to answer for it, because you will give us weapons and let us strike into Russian territory. Poland will produce electricity for Ukraine using its coal-fired thermal power plants, Prime Minister Tusk. This will not solve the problem completely, but it may partially help survive a difficult winter. Also, partially help survive a very difficult summer, because it's been literally 60. Humidity in this country has been 59 to 65 consistently. And the weather has been at 35 to 41 degrees in Celsius. So that is about 90 to 100 degrees in Fahrenheit. It's been awful. And it wouldn't be so awful had it not been for the humidity. But the humidity is just, it's so bad. I don't know how to explain to you guys how just it feels like you're standing. Have you ever stood in front of a fire truck? A fire truck produces this insane amount of heat. It feels like a fire truck is moving next to you every time you go outside. It's sticky and wet every single time. When I get electricity back on, I turn on my AC, and my AC has that humid smell to it. Germany is ready to take Ukrainian children for treatment after the Russian attack on the Ohmatdyt hospital in Kyiv, said German Minister of Health Karl Lauterbach, following a conversation with Ukrainian Health Minister Viktor Lashko. So Germany is one of the countries that can you please block the trolls? So Germany is one of the places that is going to be taking the children, as I said earlier. Queensland AC is mandatory. Yeah, I mean, describe this as Florida. I don't think it's Florida. Florida doesn't feel that bad. There is bodies of water in Florida, and you can go to the beach. Here you are just sort of stuck. I don't know. It's kind of like New Orleans, because you have the river, but you can't really go swim in it. Yeah, it's literally similar to New Orleans. It's as bad as New Orleans. There were explosions in Zaporizhia as well on July 8th. And again, as I said, Dnipro, Kryvyi Rih, and multiple other areas of Kyiv that weren't talked about. Germany has handed over a new package of military aid to Ukraine, including Patriot air defense systems, missiles, and spare parts for them, among other equipment. At the NATO summit in Washington, the allies plan to announce a new alliance command in Germany dedicated to training and supplying Ukraine, which is great. Bild published an interview with Viktor Orban, and there is a whole synopsis of main points, and they all basically say I get it. It's war, but it's Ukraine's fault. Just negotiate with Russia. Ukraine doesn't understand what peace is, and we are just not giving the world peace. So I'm not going to go into actual specifics of everything he said, because today I do not have the mental bandwidth to handle it without having to curse this man out and getting blocked on TikTok. So we're not doing that. 5 medics and 2 patients, also thank you so much for the gift. 5 medics and 2 patients were killed as a result of debris hitting Adonis Medical Center in Kyiv. That is 5 medics and 2 patients, and that is on the left bank, and that is the place that people are not talking about because it got completely overshadowed by Ohmatdyt. 5 people, 5 medics, and 2 patients. At the same time, in the Isida clinic, thank you, Chad, located in the same building, the Russian rocket damaged the building. The windows were broken, but there were thankfully no casualties. That was a maternity ward of a private clinic. 5 doctors, 2 patients, a maternity ward ruined in a private clinic. This is what that looked like after the strike. Russian propagandists, of course. You know what's funny? When I was walking by, it's not funny, but like it's ironic. When I was walking by the first missile attack site, which was like the subway station, there is a factory there, and Russians have attacked that factory since the first days of the full-scale invasion. It's like the 10th time that they're trying to shoot up this factory. The factory used to make projectiles and I don't know, like ammunition and stuff like that, but Russia had shut it up in the first days of the invasion, and obviously everything that has to do with military production has moved out of the capital and moved out of large cities because we can't afford to to have that there. And I don't mean monetarily, I mean in people's lives. So that factory now functions as something like, I don't want to lie because I don't know specifically what it does, but it's something like, I don't know, fridge, like parts for fridges, because it's a massive building, and like it just standing there is a huge loss to the economy, right? So it produces like refrigerator parts or something, and Russia knows this. But they've been continuously targeting it, because if they keep targeting the factory, they can say that they were actually meaning to target a factory that produces ammunition, and that was their target, and the hospital and the train station and the other hospitals were just collateral damage. That's not the case. That is not the case at all. And when I walked by the factory and I saw the windows blown out and the fact that it was like right by the train station, I was like, oh, they're gonna claim that they were that this was a missile factory or something. Russian propagandists claimed that it was a missile factory, and then said that an American Patriot missile hit the children's hospital in Kyiv. However, images clearly show a Russian KH-101. Hi, Matthew. Stefanchuk called on the West to lift any restrictions on strikes against the Russian Federation after the attack on Ohmatdyt. Emotionally commenting on the latest massive Russian missile attack on Ukraine, particularly on the children's hospital and the maternity hospital, she showed a picture with queues of cars with help, which the people of Kyiv were taking to the injured hospital. Actually, we could not order a cab anywhere near my apartment complex because of traffic. Our partners should also learn this lesson of solidarity. There should be such queues of cars with help and weapons that arrive on time at the border of Ukraine. According to him, Ukraine wants to have the right to protection guaranteed by the UN Charter and to use it to the fullest extent. This is what was happening in my neighborhood. All of these people are people that came to help. I have a building chat on Telegram of basically like all of my neighbors, and I want to say that it was the most active day because everyone wanted to help. People were bringing water, people were like buying things, people were bringing things. People were bringing medical things. A lot of the people were at the hospital clearing the debris all day. It was unbelievable. Like, this kind of support is unbelievable. And that's what Ukrainians do. It's like, when Russians are like, we can't do anything because like they do this to us. It's like Ukrainians do everything. Because anytime something happens, we all come together and support each other instead of hiding. Tomorrow, anyone in Ukraine won't gain weight from a cheeseburger at McDonald's. All the money from the sale will go to Ohmatdyt. McDonald's Ukraine announced that on July 9th, it will direct all profits from the sale of cheeseburgers to the affected children. So, yeah, if you're in Ukraine, go get a cheeseburger. And that's not something I ever thought I would say because I don't like junk food and I do not necessarily promote getting junk food. As of 3:18 a.m. yesterday, it was known that overall 37 people have been killed, including 3 children, and 170 people have been injured, including 13 children. At the NATO summit in Washington on July 19th, the leaders of the alliance will discuss forming 35 to 50 additional brigades as part of plans to protect against a possible attack from Russia, according to Reuters, citing sources. Here is the video that I was talking about when you see the reaction of people to hearing explosion sounds, and one of them, and you will see exactly who, is a military guy. And you can see his reaction as opposed to everyone else who is a civilian because he's so used to this that it doesn't even bother him. This is the video. He's like looking at his watch. He's just like, but to be fair, this is most of us. Like, when I tell you, I heard these same sounds. Like, this is my neighborhood. This is like right next to me, right? And the first 2 or 3 of them, I don't even remember. I was just like, oh, air defense working. That's fine. I mean, like, But then I was like, okay, there are a bunch of them. So probably like many cruise missiles coming to Kyiv. So me and Cine ran downstairs and then we just sat down on the couch. And like, you can even see in the video, it's like until I realized that it hit somewhere very close, I don't even like budge, That's the thing. It's kind of like, that's what happens when you live in these conditions day to day. Germany stands unwaveringly on the side of Ukrainians, especially in these difficult times, Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz tweeted. The body of a boy was found during the night analysis of the rubble of a house destroyed by a missile in Kyiv, according to the State Emergency Service. The number of injured in the capital has increased to 117, with the dead now at 27, including 4 children. The White House condemned Russia's strikes on the Ohmatdyt Children's Clinic and promised to send a very strong set of signals and messages to Putin this week. Oh, really? What are those? Are you just going to keep condemning it and not doing anything and not letting us strike into Russia? Because, every single time something like this happens, the White House sends Putin a very strong message of condemnation on national TV. Rescuers retrieved another body of a woman from a house in Kyiv. The number of dead in this building has increased to 12. I do believe that happened when we were there, but wasn't reported on until later. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hugged Putin in Moscow, but also commemorated Russian unknown soldiers, and it's now very known soldiers. Not only India's Modi hugs Putin in Moscow, but also commemorates Russian unknown soldier, as its now very known soldiers kill Ukrainian civilians, including kids with cancer. I honestly do not understand how you can be so hypocritical to go to Russia and be all buddy buddy with Putin. I understand that they have relationships and financial and economical relationships, and that, you know, India wants to sort of ride this wave as long as possible. But at the same time, like, you don't have to be a piece of shit who goes to Russia and hugs Putin. You can be, you know, pleasant or cordial, but you don't have to go out of your way to do that, especially on a day that this happens. It's disgusting. At the time of the missile attack, there were 627 children in Ohmatdyt. Most of them were temporarily discharged home, and the medical workers of the institution continue to maintain contact with their parents, said Minister of Health Leshko. 11 people were rescued from under the rubble and 32 people were killed, including 4 children. As a result of yesterday's Russian missile attack in Kyiv, 120 people were injured, including 10 children, the state emergency service reported. Search and rescue work continues under the rubble of residential buildings in Shevchenkivsky district. At the time of the attack, there were 627 children in the Ohmatdyt hospital, of which 8 were injured. Currently, 94 children have been evacuated to other hospitals in Kyiv. In the surviving departments of Ohmatdyt, 68 children remain under treatment. As a sign of solidarity with the day of mourning in Ukrainian cities that suffered from yesterday's Russian missile attack, several Western embassies in Kyiv lowered their national flags. British Ambassador Martin Harris published a photo of the flag at half-mast on the embassy building. "We will remember them. This evil must be defeated," he said. Did they say how long repairs would take? No, not yet, but Ukrainians have donated, I think, so United 24, Grammarly, I think, donated 20 million hryvnias or something like that, or 200 million hryvnias. Grammarly donated a ridiculous amount of money to United 24's initiative. And all in total, with all donations from foreigners, from Ukrainians, from everyone around the world, United 24 raised $8 million. But Grammarly donated 20 million hryvnias. Ambassadors of 27 EU countries will discuss Orban's trips to Moscow and Beijing at the beginning of Hungary's 6-month EU presidency. The closed-door meeting will be held at the request of Poland, which expressed reservations after Viktor Orban traveled to Moscow on July 5th and Beijing on July 8th on what he calls a peaceful mission, Voice of America reports. Orban admitted that he kept his tour, which began with a trip to Kyiv on July 2nd, a secret from his allies, of course. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell stated that Orban's visit to Moscow took place exclusively within the framework of bilateral relationships between Hungary and Russia, and that Orban did not receive any mandate from the EU Council to visit Moscow. In fact, he hid that, which you let the enemy in, because he's hiding things from you, but he's not hiding things from Putin. That should tell you everything you need to know. Norway will transfer spare parts for Sea King helicopters to Ukraine, said Norwegian Defense Minister Bjorn Arild. The conflict in Ukraine must be resolved peacefully in accordance with international law and based on the UN Charter. Narendra Modi. He can go very, very far. And I'm so tired of hearing these world leaders say peace and Russia say peace while Russia sends kinjals down our way and destroys literally children with cancer. No, thank you. In Lithuania, there is hope that the massive attack by the Russian Federation will impact the discussion of Ukraine and NATO. Lithuanian Foreign Minister Landsbergis expressed hope that the latest Russian attack on Ukraine, particularly on the hospital, will influence discussions within the alliance. It did. The head of the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, Dmytro Kuleba, said that the Russian missile attack on Ukraine the day before had put Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban on a peaceful mission in the aggressor state. While Orban flew to Kyiv, Then let me say right away that it was not agreed with Ukraine. He flew to Moscow and China and calls it a mission of peace. He talks about a ceasefire while Putin strikes a children's hospital, Ukrainian factories, and Ukrainian cities, massively killing dozens of people. Putin puts Orban in a difficult position because, against this background, it becomes extremely difficult to promote the narrative that Putin is ready for some kind of settlement. He's not putting Orban in a difficult position. Orban is putting himself in a difficult position. He has been Putin's lap chihuahua for the longest time. A Ukrainian hospital, one of Russia's favorite targets, as seen on this map. In response to the July 8th attack on Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital in Kyiv, we take a closer look at other times Russia violated international humanitarian law by deliberately and indiscriminately targeting hospitals in Ukraine. One other very famous example of that is the maternity ward in Mariupol, and you remember that from the early days of the invasion. Also, there is a fantastic video about this on United 24 Media. Please go check it out. It's called A Ukrainian Hospital, One of Russia's Favorite Targets, as seen on this map. And there is a map, and of course, they talk about this extensively. And it shows you all of the hospitals that Russia targeted or destroyed. In Kyiv, rescuers found photos of a boy's family while sorting through the rubble of a residential building in the Shevchenkivsky district. That's the building that we were at. The boy was found with his mother under the debris. Bright childhood memories of sports, studies, and perhaps even his first love all taken away. Russia continues to take the lives of our children. These are the pictures of the boy that were found. And so are these. Red Cross are near useless. Oh yes, UNICEF, UN, and the Red Cross all showed up to the site at the hospital, and they each brought about 4 boxes. For your understanding, we, 5 individuals, brought about the same amount of aid as UNICEF did. And there were some American volunteers that set up a literal street food truck for people who were clearing the rubble and offering them free coffee, free water, free sandwiches and stuff like that. And that was more than what UNICEF, the UN, and the Red Cross did combined. There were Red Cross representatives at the site of the rubble that we were clearing, and I did not see them doing anything but taking pictures. Literally. These people showed up with a bare minimum of stuff. I think they might have brought water, but what they did bring as well is expensive $10,000 Sony cameras. People in the Red Cross vests had cameras that cost more than the amount of aid they have given Ukraine combined, probably. Every time I see someone in the Red Cross vest, I literally want to punch them in the face. Spain has completed the repair of 10 Leopard 2A4 tanks, which will be delivered to Ukraine. The transfer will take place in the near future. Another 9 Leopard 2A4 tanks will be ready by September. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico, in a telephone conversation with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, condemned the attack on the Ohmatdyt Children's Hospital. The additional 5 air defense systems will help significantly, but they are insufficient for complete protection, stated Volodymyr Zelensky. When asked if Ukraine could regain its capability to intercept about 80% of Russian missiles as it did before, the president responded, "We are very grateful for the decision to provide additional Patriot systems. Of course, they will help, but it's not enough. It's never enough. You saw the result, a recent attack on Kyiv, which I thought was well defended, but you saw that it wasn't sufficient." Thank you. He emphasized that Ukraine needs more air defense systems of various types, not just the Patriots. According to him, Russia uses 3,500 anti-aircraft missiles every month, and its aircraft are primarily based in zones where Ukraine's partners do not permit the use of their weapons. And that's very true. One of the things that the biggest reason why we need our partners to permit us to strike into Russia is because we need to ruin their air bases. All 32 NATO members will be asked to develop civil defense plans in case of activation of the 5th article at the Alliance Summit. The Russian Federation always knows where its missiles hit. It was a direct strike by a Russian missile that destroyed a hospital building in Kyiv, stated the president of Ukraine during a speech at the Ronald Reagan Institute at the NATO summit. Imagine doctors, ordinary people, rescuers, all working together to clear the wreckage, trying to save as many lives as possible. Were any of those trapped under the rubble prepared to wait a month for rescue? No. Because when it comes to saving lives, you act immediately. When you need to defeat enemies, you take action and win. That's how wars are won, and that's who Ukrainians are. NATO countries will provide more than $7 million to support women in the armed forces, U.S. Secretary of State Blinken announced at a reception after the NATO roundtable, Women, Peace, Security. Thanks. Maybe you could also provide us with a couple of hundreds of $1 million worth of air defense systems that are literally sitting in your warehouses, and for some reason you're not providing them. Are you aware that the US gave us one Patriot system? One. The KH-101 missile, which devastated the Ohmatdyt hospital, reportedly incorporated Western-made components. Thank you. Indicating the Kremlin's effective circumvention of sanctions, according to experts and Ukrainian officials cited by the Financial Times. An analysis of Russian documents reveals that Russian firms in 2023 managed to acquire these components by purchasing them openly on the market and importing them via China. Specialists from the Kyiv Research Institute of Forensic Examinations have identified over 30 parts and fragments, parts, literally, belonging to the KH-101 missile. Russia still very effectively swerves sanctions. Well, this is some response to what happened. The leaders of the United States, Denmark, and the Netherlands, Biden, Frederiksen, and Schoof, who led the so-called fighter coalition, confirmed that Ukraine will receive the first F-16 aircraft during the summer. The process of handing over these fighters is already underway, and already in the summer of this year, Ukraine will start flying the new fighters. At the moment, we cannot provide additional information for reasons of operational security, the statement reads. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg stated that admitting new members to NATO requires consensus, but the steps currently being taken will facilitate Ukraine's membership when the time is right. They also said that the path to the membership was irreversible. A child who was in Ohmatdyt during the attack on July 8th has died. Unfortunately, we have the first child victim, a little boy who was in critical condition in the intensive care unit at the time of the missile attack, has died. He was later transported to another hospital in Kyiv, and that's where it happened. The USA is discussing with Ukraine the possibility of permitting the use of American long-range weapons for strikes deep into Russia. State Department Representative Smith noted that the U.S. is carefully and closely working with our Ukrainian counterparts to adapt and adjust security assistance and the guidelines we provide with that assistance to counter these threats. So this is, such a shitty part, because in order for U.S. and other countries to hear us and to believe us that we need to destroy these air bases, and that's why we need to be able to strike into Russia, children need to die in a cancer ward. We never get what we are asking for until a massive disaster comes. So basically, every single time Ukraine has to suffer a ridiculous amount of losses for the world to finally decide to discuss things with us. And that's despicable. In the morning, I read about the permission to use Storm Shadow missiles against military facilities on the territory of the Russian Federation. Today, we had the opportunity to discuss the practical implementation of this decision. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, held his first meeting with the new Prime Minister of Great Britain, Keir Starmer, on the sidelines of the NATO summit. And NATO summit agreed on a financing plan for Ukraine's defense for 2025, which is very good news. With that said, that's all I have for you for today. If you guys are just joining, in the beginning of this live, I basically was telling you the story of the day that, thank you so much, of the day that this missile attack happened. It was in my neighborhood. I live basically, if the hospital was the beach, I live on the second line of apartments. So I live very close to the hospital, and I was recounting what that day was like for me. So if you're interested in that, it's in the beginning of the video. It's in the beginning of the live. I also, just to remind you, there's still a fundraiser going for my classmate at the front line, and for equipment for him, which includes an EcoFlow, a generator, a laptop, a tablet, and both of these are needed to operate. And both of these are needed to operate this other piece of equipment that he's fundraising for that intercepts video from FPV drones, from enemy FPV drones. I also see Armin is saying that he sent the quote of the day, so I'm going to read it, and that's what we are going to end today on. But Armin, I don't see a message from you. Are you sure you sent it on IG? Because I'm not getting it. I have one from Sunday, which says the French philosopher Voltaire wrote, "It is forbidden to kill, therefore all murderers are punished unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets." Russian propaganda shows how true this is. Russian pensioners see images of carnage on TV with a bit of patriotic music dubbed over the video, and they easily forget the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Humans are easily influenced, and this war is proof of that gullibility. Well, I do think that with Russians, it's also kind of something that they have that's been ingrained into them for so long that at this point it's just part of their national identity, unfortunately. All right, you guys, I will see you tomorrow or the day after. I'm sorry I haven't been going live every evening. I've been going live, I guess, every 2 days or every other day. It's been a lot going on. Tomorrow I'm going, I need to be at the HR office at 9 a.m. because try getting yourself, basically, in order for you to get hired in Ukraine, obviously you have to go to the HR, and it's like a whole thing. Okay. And it's, it's a whole thing, and it's a long process, and you have to deal with the HR, and you have to bring them like physical copies of documents and your ID and your passport and like whatnot. And it's just like, for something that's so digitalized, I don't think you have to do that. I don't think you have to do that in like modern companies, but this is like a government situation. So yeah. Okay, you guys, I love you. You're brilliant and fantastic. Thank you very much. I will see you tomorrow or the day after. And please don't forget that if you have the ability to donate for the fundraiser for my classmate, you can do so through PayPal, Venmo, or Revolut, all available in my link in bio on both YouTube and TikTok and everywhere else. And I thank you so much. And obviously I haven't talked about it enough today because I think there was so much information packed into today's live because it's been a while. Good night, and I'll see you tomorrow. Okay.